Sweet Christmas, jive turkeys, and welcome to the JonesCast. Well, actually, no. Welcome to AKA the JonesCast. That's right, Mozz and I have been asked, in leading up to the Grand Defenders adventure coming to Netflix soon, as well as Iron Fist coming to Netflix soon, to go back and re-meet some of our classic Netflix Marvel heroes, starting with Jessica Jones. Tonight we start off with Episode 1, Season 1, aka Ladies' Night. Jessica Jones is hired to find a pretty NYU student who's vanished, but it turns out to be more than a simple missing persons case. Directed by S.J. Clarkson and written by Melissa Rosenberg. Make sure it was Melissa. Yes, Melissa Rosenberg. Who also gets a created by credit. So good for her. Of course, stars for Kristen Ritter. And of course, to tie it all into the JonesCast, also starring Mike Coulter as one. Carl Lucas, though you don't know that yet. Okay. What'd you think, Phil? Or what'd you think, Mozz?
I thought it was a great first episode. They do a lot of things right. It's shot beautifully, and the story's told really well. All the acting is really, really good, and it moves at a pace where it sets a lot of things up pretty quickly. You get a lot of instant gratification as far as you get, a little mystery that solves itself out. They set up, the tone of what the villain is going to be, and man, it's a pretty dark alley they're going into.
Oh yeah, well it's an interesting aspect of this because of course when we do these as sort of bookends, there's a bit I do into when we're doing super connectivity and other things where I say the two most powerful powers in the Marvel universe are hypnotism and kung fu.
Interesting. Why kung fu?
Well, because that is the one. Well, and hypnotist, and although technically Kilgrave is not a hypnotist, he actually has a more metahuman power set.
Right.
That mind control ability is insane, but you see it displayed. You can have it at this super, basically this, app level of mind control that Kilgrave has. But, when you compare it to something like what Dr. Faustus displays or what even the Ringmaster displays in various comic books, hypnotism, that ability to just sort of make you do stuff against your own best interest, that is an insane power. And it's an power that is fairly easily distributed among the populace, and that's sort of why kung fu is its counter superpower. Because a person who is a kung fu master, no matter how human level they are, they do wind up being able to basically kick the Hulk up and down the street. Which is why when we get Iron Fist and Luke Cage, it makes for an interesting thing.
I see.
Yes.
Sort of they're tapping into things that we don't understand yet.
Well, I think what the idea is, and I think the reason why those two powers become so seen as central to, and especially these street level characters, this is what we're going to see. You look at Daredevil; he is basically just a kung fu fighter.
Right.
as is Iron Fist, although Iron Fist is actually a little higher on it, having unlocked the power of the chi and his own Iron Fist. It is about what a person through simple dedication and training can achieve. In just 7 days, we can make you a man. Moving right along. Let's see here. Our actual storyline here is we open up with, of course, Jessica Jones. She's a PI. We get a little backstory on her, which is that, she chases down cheating lovers and tapes them for the people that pay her, and then when the people see the evidence, they often are less than happy to be proven right when this is why they hired her in the first place.
Right.
And of course,
it's almost as if part of her service is to be there to bear the brunt of their anger so that they can continue on with their relationships.
Yeah, although
they have to sort of get it out on somebody. I don't know if she sees it that way, but that's how I saw it as well. That's also the service that she provides.
Yeah, although one has to point out that as far as bearing the brunt of the anger, she didn't bear it that well with the gentleman at the beginning, whom she throws through her plate glass window, which I know is a trope.
Right.
But, I almost went through plate glass this weekend because, on the day after my birthday, it was Sunday, I was walking downstairs with my son in front of me. I tripped and almost went through the plate glass window for the door of our building. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's some deadly stuff going through glass. You can, so I know it's a thing, but it always makes me wonder whenever I see that stuff. It's like, man, that guy, he had to go to the ER right away. But anyway, but that of course explains. Yes, I'm fine. That was my son making sure I was okay when I was reliving the moment of almost falling through the door. Yes, he wanted to make sure I was still okay. But this leads to the door being broken, which of course is something that we're going to come back to later. And not for nothing, the amount of force it takes to push a person through a door, that's a lot. That was a solid office door, after all. But Jessica's working. She's working with the very interesting character, Jerry Hogarth. They do a gender swap, not a personality swap with Jerry Hogarth in this. Jerry Hogarth was a lawyer for in the old Heroes for Hire series. She's still a lawyer here, and is also stepping out on her
it seems.
Yeah, her spouse, Wendy, played by Robin Weigert, and I don't know why she looks so familiar.
She was in House of Cards.
That's
amazing in House of Cards.
Yeah, well, hey, she's in the Netflix system,
Yeah.
It's she was in American Horror Story. Oh yeah, she's working regular.
She's a phenomenal actress.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and here she is again. Basically, we get introduced to Hogarth because she wanted to hire Jessica to be their staff
investigator, reporter, whatever.
But she didn't actually want the gig because she likes being her own boss. But at the same time, she's still mad that she didn't have the gig, which is just, one of those things. We meet Malcolm Ducasse, who is the local heroin addict who keeps on waking up. But he's a heroin addict with a heart of gold,
Right. And sort of as much as she wants to appear that she's got this hard exterior, here she is sort of, just letting a vagrant run in and out of her apartment like he's, Kramer and she's Seinfeld. She's a certain amount of ownership of their situation that you've got to take to be in that place with somebody, and that's really big of her, I think.
Yes, it is. Yes. And we also... we meet Malcolm. We meet the Schlottmans, who were referred to Jessica to find
their daughter.
Yeah, find their daughter. And as she does this investigation, we start to get the first inklings that something is not quite right. Actually, I did leave one thing, which is a fun scene, because this is where we get introduced to Jessica's superpowers. Is she has to serve a summons to a strip club owner, whom she threatens with her laser eyes.
to melt his insides.
Yes, which I thought was great, because you get this thing that here she has superpowers. Now, she doesn't have what superpowers she has, you don't know. You just know that she has some powers.
Right.
And now, for those who have read the comic, who are familiar with the character, she does not have laser eyes.
Right.
So this is just her bluffing. And I thought it was kind of an interesting bit because it is her, sort of building in some plausible deniability. So he says, "Oh, and she said she has laser eyes." Even if someone comes back, she says, "I don't have laser eyes. That's just ridiculous. Who has laser eyes?"
Right. It does sort of like immediately beg the question of what do you do when superheroes get on the scene? Because this guy is so used to bending the rules and working around them, still being within the rules and getting away with what he needs to, and all of a sudden a superhuman shows up, and all of a sudden he can't beat the rules by playing by the rules anymore, and that's an uncomfortable situation for things to be.
Well, exactly, and then this is the problem with superheroes in general, and it's a problem that we have seen. We see this very much in the Luke Cage series, which is about what you might call the arms race of superheroes. That once superheroes come into the situation, yes, when a Chitauri attack, it's pretty even. But when the superheroes are just hanging out and they're doing right in the world, suddenly it creates this massive power. What's the word I'm looking for? A shift in power between the criminals and those that they have to go up against. And the only way for the criminals to continue being criminal is to start becoming up-powered themselves, which of course leads to unsavory folks now being bulletproof with superhuman strength and smashing through stuff and smashing up barbershops and what have you.
Now, that's interesting, because at one point he mentions Pops.
Yes.
And I'm like, does this happen after or before? I was a little confused with the timeline, because he's like, Pops used to say that. I'm like, whoa, wait a second, Yeah,
well, this is actually before. So this does take place before the Luke Cage series.
So he couldn't have known Pops unless he's referring to a general.
No. He's referring to Pops because he knew Pops.
Oh, he did from before?
Yes. He knew Pops because he and his wife, what's her name? Was it Nia? I'm forgetting her name now. Let me just see if they mention. Let me find her because she is briefly in this episode. Gina, yes, Gina, played by Nedra McClade. Gina brought him to New York after the events that we see in what's the word I'm looking for? In
the flashback?
Yeah, at Seagate.
Oh.
Yeah, actually, was it Gina or is that a different actress now? Because now I'm looking at this and looks like they have a different actress playing her here, possibly. Let me see here. Let's see here, Luke Cage. So I'm doing a little bit of jumping back and forth.
One of the things that I thought was really interesting was how well this was shot and how well they used that to tell the story. Because you see her at first, she's always like permanently disgruntled, and she's angry, and then you get this wonderful scene where she comes into her apartment and she takes her pants off haphazardly, and then the camera shot that way where it makes you feel like you're there and she's doing this in front of you. It always gives you this really intimate feel to it. And then she comes to the bed and turns over and the camera's like right in her. It really forces you to sort of get to know the character immediately. And then when she turns over and starts sort of like breaking down a little bit, it immediately makes you feel empathy for her. I think they did a lot of things like that really well.
Yeah, well, this was really beautiful. And they really did a lot with the what's the word I'm looking for? The framing of the shots. They do a lot of stuff that has a real
behind it.
Yeah, it has a real comic book style to it. You do see the frames of the shot, sort of like what Ang Lee did with the Hulk. He was trying to emulate that image you get when you look at a page and you see the square of the box. And so we do see a lot, and the colors in this are real intense and real bright. Again, you get this strong contrast between the black and the purple and the red, giving you almost that. Another film I actually really liked, which really tried to emulate that comic palette, was of course Dick Tracy. And although a lot of people were not a fan of it, it actually is a pretty visually impressive film. And
I remember liking it as a little kid. I definitely wanted that communicator watch.
Mm-hmm. But you get a lot of that here. It's that very straight like four-tone color palette, and it's pretty intense here. During her adventures, so she is told that the Schlottman's daughter has appeared, but the cops won't do anything. She starts tracking it down, and she starts to realize who has her. And we start to get the implication. We don't really get much of the evidence yet about Kilgrave, but we do get a call out to him in a moment. We don't really know exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, one of the most fascinating aspects of this, because, you really get this sort of, they don't spell it out to you right up front in the way that, they're not, because, and there's two ways to look at it. One is that a lot of people who are watching this, of course, know everything about Kilgrave to start. They probably read the book. But more to the point, it's like if someone were really talking to people they know, they would not be they would not be giving exposition to people who already know the story.
Right. And it's sophisticated the way that it tells the story. It doesn't, pander to the most common denominator. It does things really well. And for myself, I had no idea who Kilgrave was. I had no idea who Jessica Jones was when I first saw the show. And the way they build that mystery, are these flashbacks? Is somebody trying to get through to her? What's happening? And then it keeps this air of mystery. And then at the end, you get this, horrendous things that happen. And it really puts you even more on edge, really builds that sort of dread that it fills you up with by the end of the episode. And I think they did that really, really well.
Yes. And just before that, we do get our big introduction to Luke Cage. So again, this is how the AKA JonesCast does tie directly into the Cage cast. Because Cage is right here from the very beginning. Flirting with Jessica. And even though she says, I don't flirt. Yeah, it's like, as if that's not a very flirty thing to say.
She just doesn't want to be called out on it.
Yeah, well, and let's face it, this is Mike Coulter, this is Luke Cage. A man who likes his coffee and a man who is not afraid to pour a cup if you ask.
Right.
Yeah, that ties into the Cage cast. Coffee is a euphemism in the Luke Cage series. We don't get that here, though. Although, as you say, we do get the shout out to Pops, which I thought, because it's funny because when you first watch this, I mean, Pops, who knows who he's talking about for Pops?
Yeah, it was a throwaway line.
Exactly, it's a throwaway line, and then it comes back, and I do wonder if there was a conscious awareness of that, or someone just decided, hey, remember he does that throwaway line about a Pops? Let's meet Pops. Let's see who Pops is,
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to find that out someday. If I ever get to speak to if I ever meet Melissa Rosenberg, I'll talk to her about it. Of course, that could also be straight from like Marvel Central Desk, who the Bible, they give you the Bible about everyone's character, and so they may have known Pops was going to be in there from the very beginning.
I would like to think so, because as big as the Marvel Cinematic Universe is, you've got to think that they had broader designs for, the Netflix universe.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we do get a very nice bit here when we get our little sex scene.
And man, again, do they capture, moments and emotion really, really well. Mm-hmm. Like them both opening up to each other in subtle little ways, just saying, hey, you can go a little harder. You can, and it's just discovery and excitement, and you get all of that in that scene. I thought that was such a great scene.
Yeah, and there is this interesting thing, and I don't really give you a resolution here, but as you're watching it, you do wonder. I don't think they know each other has powers yet.
Right.
I mean, they each know they have powers.
Test the boundaries and they go a little bit further.
Yeah. And you have this basic thing where, like, Luke Cage is like, I don't want to hurt you. And she's like, you can't. It's like, and Luke is thinking, oh, lady, you don't know. And Jessica's thinking, oh, buddy, you have no idea.
Yeah. But I feel like both, like, in little bits, they let go a little bit just to test. Because I'm sure they always do every time they're with somebody, just a little bit, how far they can go. And he goes a little far, and she's like, I'm okay. And there's this wonderful little moment where they almost see each other for the first time.
Exactly.
It's so great.
Yes. So, of course, Jessica, she does get back. She's on the case. She realizes that Kilgrave has chosen Miss Schlottman, Hope Schlottman, as her latest victim, and Jessica realizes everyone has to get out of town. She can go get her out of there, but then she tries to charge a ticket to Hong Kong on Hope Schlottman's card, and when it gets declined, she has to go track down her oldest, dearest friend, Trish Walker, who we see at the very beginning in like some little ads as the #1 talk radio host in New York.
Yeah.
Take that. Blanking on the guy's name now. Totally forgot. Why can't I remember his name?
Dan Rad?
What? Guy with the big nose, farts, burps on the radio. What's his name?
Howard Stern?
Yes, yeah. Take that, Howard Stern. Trish Walker is bigger than you.
Description.
Which actually wouldn't surprise me. It's very often like kind of very vanilla shows that wind up being like the big hits. And, like everyone talks about like this other thing, but the thing that actually has everyone tuning in every week is something like Trish Talk.
Yeah. Because you discount how many old people there are.
Yes. Well, what's fascinating about Trish, and of course Trish comes back in the Luke Cage series because we did get her interviewing people about Luke Cage. On her show as well, and because it is an interconnected universe, and now of course Trish in this episode, when we were talking about CageCast, we were always talking about waiting for Misty to lose her arm. For those who don't know, Trish here is actually a character by the name of Patricia Walker, who is also known as Patsy Walker, who is of course the Hellcat. And when I had a fan theory about Damon Boone, which is that he's actually Damon Hellstrom, or the MCU version of Damon Hellstrom. Damon Hellstrom, of course, was married to Patricia Walker, and of course is the result of her becoming the Hellcat when she gains superpowers after she dies and goes to hell after being driven insane by being married to the son of Satan. So. Oh yeah, it's a deep and crazy story for Patricia Walker, and really like her in this thing. But this is our first introduction to her. All we know is that she's got some tie to Jessica, and she's got money, and she is more than happy to just give her the money, no questions asked, because this is her best friend. Even though she disappeared for 6 months.
I got the sense that they were dating. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, a lot of people do that. I don't really see it that way. I do see them as just like sisters.
Okay.
And we actually see that. Well, I mean, I don't want to go. We won't go into spoilers yet, but I don't see that they were dating. I mean, yeah, and I get that, but they already had one lesbian couple on the series.
That's immediately what it felt like to me.
Yeah. I just thought, it's like when people want to ship Cap and Bucky. I'm not opposed to the idea, but also sometimes people can just have really deep and meaningful friendships.
That's true.
That's just because you love someone doesn't mean you have to have sex with them. There's lots of people you can love who you just love because they're the person that completes you in a very deep and personal way. Okay. So she gets the money from Trisha. She goes to the hotel where she knows Hope is, and
or might be because that's where he took her.
Well, yeah, but she does see that he's recreating the 1 month anniversary.
Now, see, to me, I thought he was doing that just to send her a message. Do you think this was just him having a routine that he needs to stick to for whatever reason, or him just being careless?
It's an interesting question. I think there may be an aspect of it where, I think what we're going to find with Kilgrave is that because of his power set, he is very much a child. And he's kind of, you ever see the old Twilight Zone episode, It's a Good Life with Billy Mooney?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Basically, it's Billy Mooney, who was, of course, Will Robinson in Lost in Space. He plays like this Omega-level mutant before that was actually even a thing. And basically, anything he wishes comes to pass.
Oh, boy.
But he's also a little child. And everyone in his town basically lives in constant terror of him.
Fear of this little... Right, I do remember this.
Because there's no way you can reprimand him, because anything he says is what happens. And that way I kind of see Kilgrave in that same way. So part of it might be sending a message to Jessica. Part of it might just be like, he's like, no. On the 1 month anniversary, I go to my favorite restaurant and we eat my favorite dish, and I have you buy me this, and we do this, and this is what we do, because this is what I like to do. And no one can say no. That's the advantage of him.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, it felt like he was sending her a message. And she would run into every one of these scenarios that she's been in before and have a little flashback, and he would come out from behind her. And then again, I kept thinking, is he like reaching out to her, or are these flashbacks? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna find out, because this is just the first episode, but it certainly has us hooked. She picks up Hope in the room. She's taking Hope out of the bed, and we get a line, which actually I find it's going to be a little bit of a running. I won't say a running gag, but it's something that they do a couple times in this, which is people urinating, wetting themselves in relation to Kilgrave. Yeah, I don't know if that's a thing for Kilgrave, or if maybe just Donald Trump was an investor in this show. I don't know. Okay. But she said, because she was told not to leave the bed till he gets back, and you see that she's sitting there, she's been watching the clock. She knows exactly how long it was since he left. As Jessica is literally pulling her out of the room, she's screaming, she's fighting. Jessica eventually hits her head against the door edge to knock her out. And
I thought it was... I thought it was that once she passes the doorway, the thought of letting something happen that she wasn't supposed to was too much for her brain to handle, and she immediately sort of like shuts down for a second. That it was part of the spell. That's what I thought. But I don't know. Maybe she did hit her head, because what I thought to myself at first was, isn't she like some badass private eye? Why doesn't she put a chokehold on, knock her out, and drag her out peacefully and calmly?
Well, yeah. Because although she has superhuman powers, that's sort of one of these things about people with superhuman powers. They aren't always the best fighters.
Yeah.
Because
like at one point she puts her in a chokehold, and I'm like, oh, how smart. She's just going to choke her out and take her out, and then she lets it go and starts letting her do her thing. I was like, well, wow, man.
Yeah. Well, but then, like I said, I saw that as her like intentionally knocking her out by giving her a little closed head trauma. Because that won't come back at the end. So she gets him out. She takes her. She takes him to her. She takes her. I can't remember. Yeah, no, they're in her building. They're in her building.
Her apartment. Her own apartment.
Yeah, her apartment. She has the Schlottmans come over to meet her there. She basically tells them, you just have to take her, get out of here, go as far away as you can. She basically says, he has power over you, but it'll fade, but with time and distance, it'll fade. She even does this thing which we get a call back from earlier, which was, memorizing the street names. If you memorize, run through these street names, and the idea is to put yourself in a time and a place that you can feel in control and safe. Although Jessica uses this technique throughout it, when she actually discusses this with Trish, she actually dismisses it. But clearly, it's something she's doing, and it's something that's working. So,
and it works for the Schlottman girl too.
Well, for a few minutes, and then as they're in the elevator and Jessica is about to leave, she takes out a gun and shoots both her parents.
She'd been under this control the whole time. So the whole play about not leaving the bed was even planned by him.
Maybe, yeah.
the fact that Jessica was actually, on her path and doing what she thought she should be doing.
Exactly, and that definitely feeds into your thoughts on this all being a setup for her, basically her letting Jessica know he's coming back for her.
Yeah. For me, it seems like the superpower that he has is so incredible, and so the implications of it are so far-reaching that I'd like to think that he deserves them by being that cunning. That, I feel like that's the villain I want with these kind of powers, that would be so cunning and would be that cruel and would be that sort of childish and play. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he is certainly one of the best villains Marvel has ever created, in the way that they use him in this, which is kind of funny because Purple Man really, up until this, he has always been kind of a B-rate supervillain. He's basically an old Daredevil supervillain, and again, it was this ubiquity of hypnotic powers. In the actual comic book, his actual thing was that he had these superpowered pheromones that you just wanted to do whatever he told you to do, that made him super persuasive.
Right. Is that not the mechanism by which Kilgrave works?
It is essentially it, although they've done some updates to the basic. They've rejiggered the science. Not that it makes any more sense the way they have it now, but they do alter the science a little bit from what it is in the comic books.
So what is it in the comic books?
In the comic books, he's actually purple. He actually has purple skin.
Kilgrave does?
Yeah, and he emits a very strong pheromone, and the pheromone is what makes you basically fall in love with him.
See, I can buy that.
Yeah, no, it's honestly it's as viable of a concept as the one they've presented here, but
Well, I mean, you've heard of there's this drug down in South America where people just blow it into your face. You breathe it in once, and you're a suggestible bag of meat for the next 2 days, and they tell people, hey, go take out all the money of your credit off your debit bank account, and people empty out their bank accounts and wake up 2 days later going, what happened to me?
Yeah, well, it's a scary world out there, man.
Yes, I mean, that I can buy. That makes sense. Imagine if somebody developed that power, they were able to secrete some sort of compound that did that to people.
And that's why that's the scariest superpower, man.
Man.
And what I think is deeper in this is that, it's so street level of a power. It's not laser eyes. It's not, it's not superhuman strength or bulletproofness. It's just something that is just enough that it's believable and so much more devastatingly powerful and frightening than really anything else.
Because it's the loss of control, or that for some reason, there's mental ways to make something scary. This is why Exorcist was way scarier than any gore movie that they put out today, because there was something just intrinsic to our nature that was being sort of coerced. That's what the scary part was.
Oh yeah, well, the devil is the scariest thing there is, because. And the devil is scary not because he's a big horned monster. It's because he's subtle,
Yeah.
Subtlety is scarier. The thing that makes you doubt your basic nature. And to that end, I mean, all the way back in the Bible, that's what the devil did. The devil is a trickster, The devil is Loki. The devil makes you doubt yourself, and that is the entryway. Okay, final thoughts on tonight's episode, Phil. Why do I keep on calling you Phil? Well, because I do a lot of podcasts with Phil, too. Although,
you do too many podcasts.
I do, man. But that's okay. I love podcasting. It's one of my favorite things to do right now. So, Mozz, any final thoughts on this episode?
I thought it was as excellent as a first episode to a show like this could be. I loved it.
Yeah, hands down, yeah. This is... It really awakened in me why I love this series so much. This was, I mean, Daredevil was great, and I did enjoy Daredevil, but, you kind of see this difference between Daredevil and Jessica Jones, that Jessica Jones is a modern character. Her story is way more, it's way less something that is from that early Silver Age, Men in Tights, Stan Lee, it's much less, much less comic booky, even
and
as
more realistic.
even as it exists in that universe. And it just really struck me that it was just a very strong and excellent episode. And the rewatch for me on this was just very powerful. So, yeah, really loved it. Okay, so Mozz, if people would like to reach out to you, talk to you about Luke Cage, talk to you about Jessica Jones, or talk to you about anything that interests them or you, where can they find you, my skinny rich friend?
They can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com. It's MOZZMANZOOR. You can find me on Facebook under that as well.
Excellent. And, of course, you can always reach out to me in that old-fashioned email way at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And follow me on Twitter as I live tweet Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., The Incredible Hulk, 7 o'clock on Saturdays on MeTV, and, of course, Legends of Tomorrow for the podcast of tomorrow, which I do with Zachary Hare over on the Legends of DC channel on the Southgate Media Network. You can follow me at Charlie Esser, that's CharlieEsser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle for quality. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for our inaugural episode of AKA JonesCast. Join us next week. Good night.